At one point, the mustache was a universal sign of masculinity, strength, individuality, and style. But somewhere along the timeline, this once glorious facial accessory was contorted, corrupted, and transformed into the antithesis of what it once stood for. So what happened? Who ruined the mustache? Before we pinpoint where it went wrong, let's first take a look at the peculiar history and the unlikely war between the mustache and the beard. For most of recorded history, the full beard was the dominant facial hairstyle. From China to Western Europe, it was common for men of all socioeconomic statuses to be seen with a full beard. That is, until this man, Peter I, Tsar of Russia. Reigning from 1682 till his death in 1721, Peter's main goal was to Europeanize Russian culture. One of his ways to impose these measures was imposing a beard tax in 1705. In order to keep their beards, Russian men would have to pay 100 rubles per year. These men would receive a beard token as authorization of their payment. I can't make this up. And if officials caught bearded men without the required tokens, they would be publicly shaved in front of the entire neighborhood. As a result of these measures, many Russian men, including Peter himself, rocked the solo mustache, and the facial hairstyle flourished throughout Europe. Over the next century or so, the mustache fell out of favor and the beard once again took dominance over European culture. That is, until people within the filthy cities realized that beards were a breeding ground for bacteria and fungus. Because of this, shaving was back in style, and the beginning of the 20th century ushered in the golden age of the mustache. From actors, politicians, musicians, civil rights leaders, athletes, scientists, and artists, virtually everywhere you looked, there was an iconic mustache during this century. The mustache wasn't just in style, it was style. During the 70s in America, Burt Reynolds became an icon, much of his look attributed towards his mustache. Pop stars like Prince and Rick James were famous for their own variations of the look. The mustache proved that it could be eccentric and flamboyant, but also traditional and old school. A jack of all trades, you would see a rock star and a CEO with the same facial hair. My personal favorite rendition of the mustache during this time has got to be from my favorite comedic actor, Eddie Murphy. The style fit with every single one of his characters, from the lighthearted and goofy tone of Beverly Hills Cop to the sophisticated and cool swag of Boomerang. Side note, Boomerang has got to be one of the best dressed movies of all time. But something weird happened to the mustache at the turn of the millennia. During the 2000s, the mustache fell far out of favor. The last iconic mustache of this time that I can think of was Wesley Snipes in Blade. People were no longer interested in it, and the 2000s were dominated by the clean-shaven face. Now, initially this seemed to be a simple change in the culture's taste. Much like how skinny jeans fall in and out of favor, this seemed to be a routine dip in the mustache's popularity. But oddly enough, after this decade-long dip of the mustache's popularity, there were no signs of it coming back. But during the mid-2010s, the mustache seemed to make a return, but it was different. Why does he look so weird? Like most trends that get ruined, the answer lies in millennials. You see, millennials were the first generation that had no distinct era. It's hard to characterize millennials the same way you would characterize baby boomers for thinking they're perfect and being hippies, and Gen Xers for being cynical and counterculture. When you think of millennials, words like participation trophy and BuzzFeed may come to mind, but truthfully it's difficult to characterize them like generations past. Millennials were the generation that ended finding an identity. There's too much information and too many trends for that. From now on, it's creating an identity. And this leads to the rise of hipster culture and the death of the mustache as we know it. Of all the iterations of the mustache, the millennial hipster mustache is by far my least favorite. With no clear style to emulate, many millennial men adopted the aesthetic of what I can only describe as a bi-curious lumberjack. Boots, skinny black jeans, red flannel, beanie, topped off with a disgustingly large beard or an entirely corrupted mustache. I had no clue it was possible to look like you have concerningly low testosterone levels with such a masculine facial feature. Even though mustaches were back in style, they had become become uncool. It had now become an excuse to be somebody, to differentiate yourself, to have an identity. There was nothing secure about the hipster mustache. It just looks so disingenuous, it screams corporate. These guys look like background characters in CW shows, and me, in my naivete, thought these corrupted mustaches would have been a trend, gone with the turn of the 2020s. But boy, was I in for a treat. If there's one thing Gen Z loves, and I mean we love, it's irony. And the ironic faux male feminist, self-proclaimed intellectual dresses like a working class man in the 80s despite being completely white-collar aesthetic is the bane of my existence. Gen Z saw the millennial hipster aesthetic, took it, contorted it, and somehow made it even worse. If you look like this, I will never forgive you for what you did to the mustache. Remember a couple minutes ago where I said the millennial hipster mustache was my least favorite iteration of it? Yeah, well that pales in comparison to this crime against humanity. Shaggy mullet, skinny stature, painted nails, patchy mustache. In isolation, these elements are completely fine fashion statements, but when combined, they're less like a delicious gumbo and more akin to that weird concoction you and your friends create at the end of lunch when you combine all your leftovers. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but by just looking at this guy, you can probably make an accurate estimation about who he is. The desire to ironically look like just oozes insecurity. In case you didn't know, by trying so hard to look like you don't try hard makes you look like a tryhard. And at the center of this fake liberal, Fantano worshipping, insecure, thinks Tame Impala is underground, keep your girl away from him weirdo, there lies the once glorious facial accessory. Because ultimately that's what all of this is about. This genre of guys ruined the mustache. Every mustache I see these days is an ironic attempt to stand out, not a secure and bold fashion statement. So where do we go from here? Is there hope to bring back the mustache to its former glory? The answer is yes, but it starts with you. You see, my friend, if you want to bring back the mustache, you have to wear it with pride. Don't do it out of some need to look like you don't care what other people think of you. If there's one thing I know about humans, it's that we are easily influenced, and we're especially easily influenced by people who are authentically confident. So if you're confident and you rock the mustache in a non-ironic way, people will find that endearing and will naturally gravitate towards you. Some modern mustaches that I find particularly impressive have got to be Pedro Pascal, Gardner Minshew, Miles Teller in Top Gun, and Steve Lacy. Let me know if I missed anyone. I probably did. Also, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there very soon. Also, I wanted to let you know that I'm posting a video every single day for the rest of the year. So subscribe and stay tuned. Peace.